There you go. Hello, 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 and welcome to the cheap seats on 1WSR. Remember, you can follow us on our YouTube channel at One World Sports Radio. My name is Mpho Mutlani, and I've got AB and also Dean. Let's just try to get their names on. Their display names. Their display names.
Just in case you forget.
Okay, that is all good. We're not on Periscope, but we are on Facebook, so that's good. All the other channels are busy with the cricket, so that's a good thing. But anyway, let's get it going. So this week on Cheap Seats, we'll be discussing Manchester City and also how their form has been. Is it they league to lose, or has the chasing pack decidedly given it to them with their run of form recently? On top of that, I will be going into FPL. We've got some transfers in, transfers out, captaining, and also a differential discussion that we'll be doing. But before we get into that, please do follow us on these platforms, interact with us on these platforms, and let us know what you think, how we can improve the show, or how or what other content you'd like for us to do. Most importantly, subscribe on YouTube. How are you guys doing this week, Dean and AB?
Great. Normally, from a football perspective, not great. I was promised a Mourinho, that team that could defend, and we score 4 goals and still lose 5-4. So, footballing-wise, terrible. Can't wait for the season to end and for Spurs to at least win the Carabao Cup. But other than that, we're all good.
That's good. Spurs to win the Carabao Cup. When is the Carabao Cup final?
End of April. So hopefully City implode by then. Because honestly, I don't see anyone beating City, which we'll get into. But that's the only way I can see us actually standing a chance.
Okay. AB, how are you doing?
No, I'm good, man. I'm a little tired after watching United's extra time win. I actually fell asleep in extra time, so I missed us winning. So, yeah, I mean, United haven't really been doing well at home, and I'm glad now that the home fixtures are done and United can go away and hopefully bring back some results. But yeah, no, can't really complain. It is City's league to lose.
That is a very, very true, my friend. Okay, so I was just checking. I think we've kicked off the cricket, guys. But on Twitter, they're still live on the other platforms. So most importantly, okay, so now let's do this. So Manchester City have gone on this incredible run of games. They're now top of the log. They're now looking forward into an expanse where they can run away with it, because I think they've got a 3-point lead at the top of the table now, or 5-point lead at the top of the table with a game in hand.
Yeah.
They've won their last five. They're the best defense in the league. How do you characterize this league now? Is it City's to lose and United's to gain, or is it the other way around with is it the other way around with the chasing pack necessarily stumbling along the way?
You can go. You take the chasing pack, AB, because I'm not even close to the chasing pack anymore.
Yeah, look, I mean, this season's been a very funny one. We had teams like Liverpool who looked like they were back and then suddenly stumbling, losing to Burnley, losing to Brighton, dropping points to Fulham, dropping points to United. You've got a United team as well who looked really good going forward, but then you give the ball back and suddenly guys, stalwarts like David De Gea and are making mistakes. You've got Victor Lindelof who doesn't know who to mark. you look at Chelsea. Chelsea have done really well in the last 3 games, but they started it off the season having the best transfer window, and then suddenly not even finding a route to goal. They've got Timo Werner, who's probably got more clean sheets than De Gea. So it's from a chasing pack point of view, it's been really uneventful. And I'd like to say that maybe the lower league or lower position teams have been the ones who've been exciting. The Leedses, the Brightons now, the Fulhams, the West Hams suddenly are top 4. And it's a very weird season, a very confusing season. And right now, City look like unplayable. They've conceded 5 goals in the last 15 games in all competitions. You can't. That is championship pedigree, if ever I've seen one. And it's sad because the league could almost be over, but yeah, it is what it is.
Dean, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with AB. I think it's kind of a combination of the chasing pack falter at places where you would expect them to kind of kick on and then mount a challenge. But I also think it's 100% City's to lose. I mean, they had a bit of a stumbling block, I mean, they lost 5-2 to Leicester early on in the season. So it's also, as we've said, they've also had their troubled start and they have had a troublesome season or start to the season. But they way past that and they are just flying. I mean, I watched that game against Swansea last night and there's no ways you can actually play them. Unless you score a lucky goal here or there, you might be able to break through that defense. But I just don't see anyone really mounting a charge against them. I mean, if they win that game in hand, which it's against Spurs this weekend, so they will win. I don't see how, an 8-point lead, 23 games done. I don't see how anyone can come back. So take your hats off to City. They've excelled where they've needed to. They've had the injury problems, Aguero gone, KDB gone, but they've still managed to be, the team that everyone has to be to try and get it around. So this season, I think, with everything going on, it's how best you dealt with your bad times rather than how good you were in your good times. And they've dealt with the bad times better than anyone else. So congrats to them, unfortunately.
Okay, let's refrain from giving people the league title in game week 24.
Let's not go to Arsenal and Paul.
I'm happy to give City the league title now and put the pressure on them and make them, choke under it. I'm fine with that.
But let's refrain because we still have a third of the season to go. Many things can happen. As we saw at the beginning of the season, City didn't start off well. They were far behind. They were chasing the league, now at the top. And it's different when you move on from being the hunter to being the hunted. And that's something that's a mind shift change that Pep needs to manage. He's also got injuries in key areas. He's missing KDB. He's missing Aguero. Gabriel Jesus is not firing. Sterling isn't firing. In as much as he can set teams up for big games, the other question is at the beginning of the season, they weren't winning against small teams. So that's something that I think we need to watch out for because I kind of feel he's gotten this team G'd up for the fact that they've come up against these run of teams. They're playing Liverpool, they're playing Spurs, they're going to play Everton on Tuesday. So it's a 1-2 punch. Your back's against the wall. But what happens when you're playing Sheffield or you're playing Aston Villa? Okay, not Aston Villa. Aston Villa is actually quite good, but teams in the bottom 10, like Arsenal and all of the guys, because we're in the bottom. We're at 10, so I'll put Arsenal in the bottom 10. And so for me, that's my question as to how does Pep motivate the players? You could see they were motivated against Liverpool. They'll be clearly motivated against Spurs on the weekend. They'll also be motivated against Everton next week. And I do think they've in this season. Of what you call of COVID and all these up and downs. Yes, they've handled it well, but there's probably, and we've seen now teams have had 2 areas where they've had a bit of a slump. I think Tottenham's one's seemingly extended because it's just the whole of December and it hasn't stopped. But there's always that's going to come. That adversity is going to come. And so how they're going to handle that is something that we can look back at the beginning of the season and say, okay, maybe they didn't handle it that well. They could drop some points. And if they do drop some points, what does that mean for them? But right now, yes, they've pulled away. Yes, there's a combination of the fact that the chasing pack haven't done well. And you can just see with the fact of Leicester's not a great team. They're a good side. They're not a great side. But what you always get with Leicester is that they play honest football, they play true football, and look at where they are right now. They're at 43. With a guy like Jamie Vardy, if you have a striker like Jamie Vardy, who's always going to be scoring goals, double-digit goals a season, you put yourself up there. And I think that's a characterization of how the season's gone, is that everyone else has missed out and everything. And I'm not saying Leicester's not a bad team. What I'm saying is that there are better teams on paper in this league that aren't performing to their level, and that's what you get. And it's that season in 2016 when Leicester was at the top. Everyone was angry. Everyone thought that Leicester was going to drop off, but largely, and yes, you can say that Leicester won it, but I think the other teams around them lost it. They couldn't get their acts together in time to mount a chase on Chelsea, on Leicester. This season, there's time. There's time. You can also hope for something to change. And I do think that maybe if you get your ducks in a row in this last third, and for instance, there's about, I think it's 22, there's about 18 games left. If you can get a run of 10 wins in a row or 10 undefeated, 10 games where you haven't lost, you can close that gap to Man City and you can win it. And the other thing is obviously with Spurs playing City, with United playing City in the second half of the season, with Liverpool's already played them, with Chelsea playing them again, you're going to then those games are going to be even more important to stopping the City run. And if that doesn't happen, you can then say the other teams, well, City's won it if City managed to win it. But right now, City are limping and everyone else is just faltering. So I'll go onto the side of everyone else is just stuffing this up somehow.
Yeah, and but now it's a great point that you make there, Paul. City's next 5 games are against the teams who have been stuffing up to an extent. I mean, you've got Spurs coming up, and if Spurs want to be top 4, if they want to be title contenders, you have to beat City. You've got Arsenal, also same boat. If they want to get back into that European spot, they've got to beat City. West Ham are the pretenders now. They got to beat City. And then you got United. You got to beat City. Same with Everton as well. So it's like the next 5 games are so important for City season and their competitors. It's going to be really interesting. And hopefully those teams can do the league a favor and make it a little bit more exciting.
Yeah, and that's what you want. You want a season like last season where Liverpool they had that long, that unbeaten run that was stifled and COVID came in and they were holding on and City were trying to chase to a point where obviously they lost it with about with 3 weeks to go. You want that type of season. You also want that Aguero season, AB, where it went down to the last the last day or the last kick of the season. That's what you want as a fan. But with COVID, you might not get that. And the other thing that people need to understand is that with the UK teams in Europe, playing in Europe, they're going to be traveling to neutral venues. So, for instance, Arsenal's game is now going to be played. So Arsenal's game against Besiktas is going to be played in, what is it? It's Italy. That's for the one leg. And then the home leg, which Arsenal would have been comfortable, they would have traveled. Now they're going to be playing in Greece, and so too all the European teams around, all the teams that are playing in Europe in the Premier League, and that brings another level of anxiety. I think City now had to travel to Germany to play, not Germany. I think it's another. I think it's either Italy or somewhere else to go and play their games. And I think who else is going? I think Chelsea's going to Hungary, and so you got to factor that in coming in, because if you're playing a Wednesday Champions League game and you're going to come in on a Sunday, land on the Thursday, your Sunday fixture is probably something that Jurgen Klopp would always tell you and everyone else that they don't have enough time to prepare their teams. So that adds another element when the Champions League comes back in, especially for a City squad that's thin. So that's also something that you need to look into, which is why if I was Leicester, I'm happy where I am. I am very, very happy where I am. Yes, you're 7 points behind City. However, everyone else is playing in Europe and you're not. So you get your midweeks off, and then you also can strike while the iron's hot on the weekend with rested players. So I think it sets up the league very well. I think if City can pull this off, it'll probably show how great Pep is as a coach with all the things that have happened around him.
I think also, I mean, if you have a look at Chelsea now, we wrote Chelsea off before Thomas Tuchel came in. And look at them. They've had a run of 4 games and they've won 3. And all of a sudden they've gone from like 10th to 1 point off 4th. So again, all it does take is a good run of form. You just have to win. It makes it sound easy, but you have to win 3 or 4 games on the trot. And you're going to be up there because the guys are faltering at the top. But whether or not a United or a Leicester or a Liverpool can pull together that run of 3 or 4 games on the trot, I think that's yet to be seen. Chelsea, I think, are having this little bit of a bubble and then they'll fall off. Liverpool, you don't actually know what's going to happen. Leicester, as we've said, anything can happen with Leicester. Vardy's back. He played last night against Brighton, so they've got their striker back. And then United, it depends what Harry Maguire rocks up. So before we give it to City, we do have to take that into account. But at the same time, I think that, as AB said, the next 6 games are the teams where you would have expected to stop City in their tracks. And if that doesn't happen, then it becomes, obviously mathematically, it becomes a lot more difficult to catch them. But I think mentally for the guys in the league, you kind of then get to a point where you're saying, okay, cool, I'm playing for 2nd, 3rd, or 4th.
Mm-hmm. Moving on to Chelsea, I love the fact that you spoke about Thomas Tuchel. How have you, because last week we spoke about, I think it was 2 weeks ago or last week, we spoke about on our FPL show that there could be a bounce from Chelsea.
Yeah.
You could get that bounce from the new coach. He's tried a lot of combinations, he's tried a lot of players, and so far they're unbeaten. And they're looking pretty good. As you say, they're 1 point of 4th. They've won their last 3 games. Those are all Tuchel games. What have you guys seen from Chelsea? Should they be putting the league on notice, or is it just one of those things where it will change as we go back to normal service will resume once the hype wears off?
I mean, the one thing that I think we all gave Lampard a lot of stick for was the man had no idea what team he was going to play. And evidently, Thomas doesn't know either. Obviously, you expect that from a new coach coming in, but the man's played a different front 3 in all 4 games. Against Wolves, he played Giroud, Havertz, Hakim Ziyech. And then Burnley, he played Abraham, Mount, Werner. Against Spurs, we were terrible. He played Hudson-Odoi, Werner, Mount. And then he played Giroud, Mount, and Werner against Sheffield. So very different combinations. His back 4 has stayed the same. So I think he likes Rudiger. He obviously likes Azpilicueta out there. Got a lot of time for Thiago, and bit of a weird one that he put Alonso in, but I saw he played Chilwell against Sheffield. So I think that defense is kind of sorted, and he's putting Kovacic and Jorginho in the middle. And I imagine when Kante comes back, he'll just do a straight swap there. But I think he is trying to figure out his front 3 still, and that's the thing that we gave Frank the most stick about. We were like, well, how do you expect these guys to score if they don't know if they're going to be playing or not? But clearly it's working under Thomas. The one thing that I found really surprising is that Mount has been the only person in that front 3 that has played the last 3 games. And so clearly it's not just Frank's son. Maybe it's Thomas's, bastard son as well from somewhere. But clearly the guy can play football, and you don't just have to be a suck up to Frank to make that Chelsea team. So I found it really interesting. I do think the run of games that they have, against Wolves, it was a normal draw. You wasn't expecting there. Burnley, it's a Burnley side that you can very easily go and beat them. And then against Spurs, if Dyer knew the rules of football, he wouldn't have given away that penalty. Again, probably would have been a 0-0. And then against Sheffield, it's Sheffield. So I think in terms of if you wanted to get a time to get a new coach, it would have been the exact moment that Chelsea did it. And the next run of games is not difficult. They've got Barnsley tonight in the FA Cup. They then go to Newcastle, and then or Newcastle come to them, and then they go to Southampton. So it has been a good period to get a new coach in, find his feet, and then kind of kick on, because after that they've got Atletico, United, Everton. So it'll be interesting to see if that bounce continues into the next 2 or 3 games, or whether things now start to plateau and we now start to see the Chelsea problems that we knew existed. But yeah, I've been really interested with the way Thomas has put out his team, and long may it not continue their good run of form.
Yeah, so that's look. I looked at that Chelsea side, and obviously expected that to happen. The Spurs win was the surprise for me. It kind of showed that there's a difference in the way that they held on. Because obviously I think they scored very early, and you kind of saw, okay, look, they have a defense. They've always had a defensive identity, but it came under pressure with Frank Lampard later on in the year. And so that's what got Frank necessarily fired, because he started conceding these random goals. But they look good. They haven't conceded much or at all. And yeah, it's just obviously trying to figure out what his best 11 is. I think the Mason Mount argument is one where Chelsea fans are divided, but I do think Mason Mount is a good footballer. The question is, where do you play him? I don't think Mason Mount. I don't think Mason Mount is a front three type of player, but I do think in that midfield he can give you something. But then the problem is that I always believe that if you've got obviously Kante, Kovacic, Havertz, Mount, one of them is going to miss out. And the way I look at it, with the way this league is working, you need two defensive midfielders most of the times against the bigger teams in the league. So Mason Mount sits out for me because I think Kai Havertz is a much better prospect playing in that number 10 role behind the striker. In that midfield three. However, if it's a flat three, then you could do Mason Mount, because Mason Mount can play out wide, and I think that's where his versatility comes in. But he's got a headache. He's got Ziyech, he's got Pulisic, he's got Mount, he's got Werner, he's got Abraham, he's got Giroud. He has to fit them in, and by the end of the season, I think guys will start asking to leave because of the fact that we'll then figure out what it looks like. Right now, it's like they're coming thick and fast. He's just trying to put a team together and get guys on the field. AB, do you have anything to say about Chelsea?
Well, I mean, so it's very interesting. We've seen almost a handful of games from him, and he's been very relaxed about his rotation policy, and he's just used players here and there. He's rotated a guy like Ben Chilwell out, who he never would have thought of doing, and maybe it's a good sense check, or maybe a good way for players to be like, you know what, this coach isn't actually afraid of rotating. I need to perform to the best of my ability. I need to prove that it was Frank that screwed the club for the start of the season, and I'm actually quite liking how he's just come in, changed a few things, and got some results, and it's good for Chelsea players because now he's giving everyone a shot. But he'll find his own team, which he's more likely to do than a Frank, and he'll probably be more tactically astute. And we've seen that in the Champions League, and we'll probably see it again against probably the best team in Spain at the moment, Atletico, when he faces them, and he's got the squad to do it. So why not use them? I wish our manager at United would use the squad a bit more, but I can understand why he doesn't, to an extent.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's going to be an interesting one. But what are you expecting? So right now, obviously, the teams around, there's some teams in and around that in the mix of those top four teams. There's West Ham, there's Leicester. How long do you think they'll last? It seems like West Ham may be struggling to, may have hit a little bit of a rough patch. Do you think they will keep on pushing the teams, the big teams around them?
Yeah, so look, they've got Sheffield this weekend, or it's Monday or whenever. Yeah, so yeah, I think West Ham will still win, but then they've got two really tough games with, I think it's City and Spurs, or Spurs and City, and that's going to define for me their top four bid. To get 0 points out of 6, they would be really bad for their title, because top four, sorry, not title, top four challenge. Because
let's calm down. It is West Ham.
Yeah, because they've got teams all around them, and then you've also got Everton, who haven't played their 2 catch-up games as well, who are also going to try and get into that sort of phase. So for Spurs and for West Ham, that's a really big game, because it's a 6-pointer, if you will. Yeah, so I don't think we'll be seeing West Ham much longer. I think we'll see a lot more of Everton, a lot more of Spurs, Leicester, Liverpool, the usual suspects come in. But yeah, West Ham and Villa, I think will drop out as the season goes on.
Okay.
Watch them go and win both games. Wow, imagine. Come on,
Okay.
Suchek.
Well, this weekend you've got some really awesome matches as we close off this Premier League portion of the show. Leicester play Liverpool, which is a really good game, I think, with Jamie Vardy and taking on Liverpool. We've also got City and Tottenham on Saturday night. I don't think there are any other big games in that weekend, unless if you think Arsenal and Leeds is a big game.
Arsenal Leeds, yep.
Look, guys. No.
Watch Bamford run a riot in that defense.
But in that first game, in those two games, what do you think? So, what do you guys think will happen in that Leicester Liverpool game and that City Tottenham game? I'll start with AB because he's got no skin in the game there, and I'll go to D.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think with Vardy back and Leicester a little bit more confident now when he's back, because that's just how it works with them. I think we'll see Leicester trouble Liverpool. There's been some bad energy around Liverpool this week. Of course, they've had an extended break because they were knocked out of the FA Cup. So that's probably good for Klopp and his players to just go and reset. But I think Brendan Rodgers and his men will look to capitalize on Liverpool's defensive frailty. And there's no striker better in the league than Jamie Vardy to do that. He will be pressing like you cannot imagine, and that's always uncomfortable. And then I think City and Spurs, geez, I would take a 7-0 to Spurs, 100%.
Evens me.
Yeah, that's, I don't know.
Dean, does Jose have will Jose come out on top against Pep this weekend?
Honestly, I mean, my heart says yes, my head says no. And unfortunately, based on our recent performances, I just don't see how anyone, let alone Spurs, can stop City. You'd like to, I mean, we beat them 2-0 at the Etihad. At Tottenham Hotspur Stadium earlier in the season. And it was a really good game in terms of our actual, tactics going into that game. We sat back, we waited, and as soon as they had a bit of a mishap, Spurs ran right and we scored those 2 goals on the break. So I don't think, and that was still when City were trying to figure out their defense. So I think now that they figured it out, trying to hit them on the break you're not going to be successful with Cancelo running around there and Stones and Diaz being so solid. So Jose needs another game plan. He's not the same thing is not going to work. And the only way I can try and see anything happening is to try and at least just push them a little bit. If you put the thing with City is if you give them a little bit too much space, they're gonna find that magical pass and they're gonna get in behind you. But Spurs have to go out and win this game. It's been 3 games before the West Brom game, 0 points against where you would have at least expected 3 against Brighton. If not more than that. So Spurs are in a really bad place. The mood around the club is terrible. I haven't been this negative about the team in a very long time. So for the fans and for the club as a whole, I think Spurs have to try and get something, even if it is a draw. I don't think we have the defensive capabilities to shut City out. So we're going to have to try, I don't know if Jose goes back 5 and just lets everyone sit and then leaves Harry Kane just by himself. You don't know, but Spurs have to try and do something. So, I mean, honestly, my heart says 2-1. My head says 5-0 to City, honestly. So, okay. I mean, that's bad.
Look, I think from my perspective, I think Leicester's going to give Liverpool a run for their money. So it might end in a score draw or even Leicester winning. Unless that's the other problem. Why did Jurgen Klopp buy centre backs if he's not going to play them? That's my big worry. I keep.
They're not good enough, though. That's the thing. That's what these Liverpool fans and they're like. Why doesn't he play the new centre backs? Because they're probably worse than Henderson at defending. Like. The guys are going. Can you imagine you putting in a guy from Preston against Jamie Vardy? The guy's going to want to quit football and go become an accountant in England. He's going to hate his life. So you have to let them ease in. Obviously, they don't have an FA Cup draw where they could have played a nothing or a lower team and then hopefully try to
That's their own fault. That's their own damn fault.
That is their own fault. But so that's the thing. I mean, Liverpool have got some tough games. You can't really see where they're going to fit them in and try and get them minutes. I mean, that game against City on the weekend, Liverpool looked horrendous. Like they just looked like they did not want to even be on that football pitch anymore. I've never seen a Liverpool side get dominated like that so quickly. Trent needs to go to defending school. So I don't see how they're gonna shut Leicester out. And again, I don't see how Salah, Mane, and Firmino are going to link up and try to score goals. It's just not on the card. So yeah, I also think Leicester's going to have a good time at the King Power.
Yeah, no, Harrison Barnes, not Harrison Barnes. That's the basketball player. Harvey
Barnes.
Harvey Barnes, yeah. Harvey Barnes and Jamie Madison with
Jamie Madison.
James
Madison and Jamie Vardy. Long day, guys. Long day, guys. Well, we'll have a good thing. And then obviously with you and Man City, I think Man City's got you. But you never know with Pep. If you score early, get a random penalty from one of the bad refs in the league, you can hold on. We've known Jose Mourinho to hold on to some really incredible ones.
You know your season is in tatters when you were top of the league at the beginning of this December, and now you're hoping for a bad ref call against City just so you can try and maybe win a game.
Hey, look, I've got Harry Kane in my FPL team, so I'm hoping he can do something. But anyway, let's move on to our FPL show. Everyone we'll play our little segment and we'll jump in onto the FPL show soon. But thanks, gents. But let's do the FPL next up. And welcome back to the FPL show, the Cheap Seats FPL. We give you all our little nuggets and tidbits for the upcoming game week. It's game week 24 this game week, and I don't want to call it a double game week because there's so many double games. It's like 2 games. It's like 4 teams participating, but it's a mini double game week. It includes City, Everton, Burnley, and who's playing Burnley over the weekend? Just checking that. It's Burnley, Fulham. Yes. So I don't think a lot of people have. I think people might have City players if they went to Fed Pep rotation. But the other 3, I don't think people have a lot of players in, unless you've got Calvert-Lewin as well as James or even Richarlison. But when was the last time we spoke about James? That's very interesting. So I've got Dean and I've got AB. How is game week 23 for you guys?
You can go, Dean.
It went okay. I want to say it was okay, but then there's also those like little things that happened where it could have gone either way. Like that Souček red card obviously should never have been a red card. And then you still get 0 points in FPL. So reverse the red card, give us our points back as well, please. You know. But yeah, I think Gundogan missing that penalty as well cost managers some points there. I think the whole world captain Antonio as well, or one of the top captain picks, he did nothing. So it was a bit of a weird game week. One of those that will kind of you just have and then you forget about when you go on. So kind of touch and go, but yeah, things are starting to heat up. At least our boy Harry Kane's back, so striker problems are solved.
So I've moved into the top 10 of our league, which is awesome because I was like relegation for most of the season. So it seems like December, January, I'm on a roll, which is great. Finally, no one got a red card in my team in this game week. Thank you, Lord. Yes, Souček did. He got a red card.
I was about to say, you always back Souček, and now did you take him out? When did that happen?
No, I didn't. He's actually on my bench in this week. We'll talk about that as we move on to what we've done. It wasn't bad. I think it was a good return. From that perspective, I moved up a couple of spots. Sterling was a differential for me, which was really nice. And then luckily Son came through. I captained Son and it worked. I got me a goal. And then obviously Patrick Bamford came through. Well, Mikel Antonio is an interesting one for me, but I'll still keep him as long as West Ham is in 6th position. Viva Moyes. Yeah, so it hasn't been too bad. AB, your game week, how was that?
28 points on the bench.
Who did you have on the bench?
So let's go through my bench. So I had your boy Smith Rowe, who's the least performing dude, with 2, which is why I benched him, because Arsenal against Villa. Then I had in goal Melier from Leeds, because Leeds are apparently keeping clean sheets now, you know. Then I had Max Kilman. I think his name's Max. He was 4 million, because they're playing against Leicester. 8 points.
I thought he was starting. Didn't know he was starting.
Yeah. And then obviously Harry Kane, because we were promised he was injured. That bullshit.
Yeah.
So I saw you got Wilson in your team as well. The good old Wilson 1 point. So anything would have done there.
So okay, 28 points on the bench. That's an interesting one. So this week we wanted to start something new. We wanted to discuss the one transfer that we would make in, the transfer that we would make in, the one transfer we would take out. And then we're also going to discuss the one differential of the week, and also the final one is who you're captaining. And then we're going to go through all 3. But for now, I think let's start with myself. We're going to make these cards a little bit bigger, but we do apologize if there's some edges. So the first one, these are my picks. My transfer in was Gundogan. My transfer out was Sterling. My differential was Matt Loughton, because he's playing a double game week, and my captain was Bruno. So that's the card. I'm going to put it up. Cool. So I transferred in Ilkay Gundogan because I needed a cheap City midfielder in order for me to get Harry Kane back in. So got rid of my striker, Shea Adams. He was worth 5.5. I then got rid of Sterling. He was worth 11. That gave me enough cash to bring Harry Kane in, and also then bring in Gundogan in. And I brought Gundogan in because it's a double game week. And so right now, from a City perspective, I've got Diaz and Gundogan to just give me something extra at the back. I see this game week as a bonus because I don't have Fulham players. I don't have Everton players right now, and I don't have Burnley players. So that was my thing. So that was what, and obviously I know you guys don't like Sterling, so that was an easy one for me to drop. Matt Loughton is a wing back for Burnley. It's between him and Charlie Taylor for me from a Burnley perspective. They can keep clean sheets, and they've been doing that so far. I think Matt Loughton's got about 7 clean sheets this season, which is not bad. Like Burnley are at the bottom, but they're not doing badly. And obviously then I picked. I think I made Bruno captain because it's West Brom away from home. Manchester United always do well away from home. So hoping for another situation, penalties, free kicks, scoring out of open play, that type of vibe from Bruno this weekend, because I know guys will go for City differentials in terms of captaincy, and then possibly even Dominic Calvert-Lewin as a captain, but I don't have those players, so that's where my thing comes in. Thoughts, guys?
No, that was good. I mean, yeah, geez. I think, it's having Sterling as a proper differential right now. For whatever reason, I think Sterling is outrageously talented and he's a brilliant player, but I would prefer to see him playing as a number 9 rather than what they've been doing. But I mean, I don't know what the ownership on Sterling is, but I think 2 seasons ago, Sterling would be as common as Salah and Son have been. So that's a really interesting sort of move.
But he's so expensive. That's my issue, and that's why I had to take him out, because I kind of felt for the 11, I need you to give me security in terms of playing every week that I can't get. I can get that from Gundogan, and I also need you to be in the points every week. And it looks like Gundogan's moved into the KDB role, which seemingly in FPL, if you can figure out who's playing in that KDB role for Man City, it's points galore. So that was the reason why. Let's move on to Dean's picks for the week. Dean, you've transferred in Harry Kane. You've transferred out Mikel Antonio. Your differential is Matt Target, and your captain is Gundogan. Let's leave it on a little bit more for the pictures for the peeps to be able to see.
Watch and learn.
So why? So obviously, you'll probably like everyone else in FPL get Kane in. It's better with the striker drought. You had another striker. I think your other striker was Bamford.
So actually, what I've done is, I know I started the 3-5-2 movement a while ago, but what I've actually gone and done is got rid of Brewster. So I've got so now I've got Kane and I got Bamford leading the line. Then I know I've said transfer out Antonio, but I've left Antonio in my team just because we're playing Sheffield, or they playing Sheffield, not we. Sorry, did not just suddenly become a West Ham fan. But the reasoning behind that is more because I think if you haven't already played your bench boost, I think this might be the time to do it, especially if you can get some of the guys in. And that's really my plan. So in terms of the reason why I also went and picked Target as a differential is he came good against Arsenal. So obviously it's not difficult to defend against Arsenal. But they're playing Brighton, so it should be a fairly, uneventful game, and you would expect Target to get a good clean sheet there. And could probably get an assist. So I think from a differential point of view, Matt Target's looking good. And from a captain perspective, you can't look past Gundogan. If you've got him, you can't look past him. He's playing Spurs, which he can run right there. There's obviously talk of him not going off penalties and Edison going on to penalties, but I don't know if that's going to happen. So there's always that opportunity. And, whenever there's a double game week, you're stupid to not captain someone that has one. Because at worst, as long as they play 90 minutes, at worst, you're going to get 8 points, which in most times you would take if it was a normal captain. So you have to captain one of the guys that have got a double game week. I don't feel safe captaining a City defender. It's burnt me in the past. All you need is one lapse in concentration. And I think Spurs might be able to score a goal, and Calvert-Lewin in that second game might be able to score a goal as well. So you don't want to take that risk. So from a City perspective, I'd look at him. If I had Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I'd probably look at captaining him. I don't have him. So that's the only issue. My thing is I've got, like I said, I can play a bench boost, and all the guys on my bench or all the guys on my full squad have a decent looking fixture. The only thing that I'm trying to do, I've got one transfer, and I'm looking at either bringing in a United defender because they play West Brom, or bringing in an Everton defender because of the double game week. So that's the only decision I still have to make. But if you ask AB, United always concede. So that's the problem. That's the conundrum.
Yeah, so I brought Luke Shaw in for Game Week 23 because I needed a United differential. Didn't do much for me.
Yeah.
So I put him on the bench, bringing in Matt Target. I don't want to bring in Matt Target against Arsenal because I kind of felt that I could get the double hit because I had Martinez in, and I was worried I was going to take the stays from Martinez and the non-clean sheet, but I didn't want to get the double hit with Target. So that's why. But Target's back in my side. AB, let's go to yours.
Cool.
You're transferring in Dominic Calvert-Lewin, double game week. You are transferring out. Is that Cancelo?
Yep, that's Cancelo.
Transferring out Cancelo. Your differential is Edison Cavani, and your captain is Ilkay Gundogan. Rationale. Why?
Cool. So, DCL has scored, I think it's 3 goals or 4 goals in his last 3 games or something like that. So he's back. Everton are playing really good football. They scored what? It was 3 against United. And then they scored.
Is actually in ridiculous form. The goal he scored against Spurs is a rocket. Lloris got a hand to it and he couldn't stop it. So Calvert-Lewin is insane at the moment.
Yeah. And just his link-up play with Richarlison, and this is also an important play, and I feel really bad for Richarlison on FPL because he's he plays in a midfield role, technically being a winger, but he's a striker in FPL, so that's a bit unfortunate for him. And the way they're playing, you saw it last night, just link-up play was beautiful. So, yeah, I think DCL needs to be in there. It also solves my Wilson problem, who got injured. The problem of me getting DCL in was he's more expensive than Wilson, so I had to sell a second player, and that for me was Cancelo, because I also have Edison. So I'm a little bit apprehensive of going in with two City defenders, if you will, for their tough run of 5 games. So I'll just stick with Edison. I know he's not going to get dropped because he's if you drop Edison, there's something wrong with you as a manager. Whereas Cancelo, we've seen, has been rested in the past. And then captain-wise, it's got to be Gundogan for now. I might change it later on to Calvert-Lewin, depending on how risky I feel. But I mean, Ilkay will still take penalties. I don't see Edison running up all that way to take a penalty. I'd love to see it.
I'd love to see it. Yeah. I'd love to see it.
But yeah, I mean, Gundogan's been.
But guys, it's in the form of I think, what's his name? The Colombian goalkeeper, Chilavert.
Yeah, he took penalties.
He took penalties.
Yeah.
So if it does that,
Sure.
you're wilding out if you have Edison. I don't have Edison. I can't spend that much on a goalkeeper.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna get killed if Edison takes a penalty this weekend. I will. I think.
I mean,
Yeah,
Gundogan's was terrible.
Gundogan's
Gundogan's penalty was a shocker.
That was a shocker.
Put John Stones on penalty.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm in a really bad position because I've got Edison in goals, and he's going to play. I'm starting him, but I've also got Kane, and I've got Calvert-Lewin, and I've got Son. So my players are playing against each other. There's nothing I can do about it. It is what it is. So yeah, we'll just have to deal. But then for me, having a differential of Cavani, who I don't have, but I wish I did, was interesting because there was that article that's been retweeted a million times by those United fans on your timelines, where Cavani is he's got the highest goals to game ratio of strikers if we're considering non-penalty goals. We saw midweek he was rested and Martial started, which means Cavani will play this week. And given the fixtures coming up, United should hopefully score a few goals. And I think Ollie's losing confidence in Martial. And also another thing that hit this afternoon was that Cavani won't be going on international duty. So if I was Ollie, I would be pushing Cavani to start every single game until internationals because he's banned, and then giving him international break to rest. Because at 34, you're
playing the numbers.
That fits exactly. Yeah. So look, okay. I mean. Yeah, he is a lethal goal scorer. If he was 8 years younger, he would be in everyone's team almost. But yeah, so let's see how that works out.
Okay, awesome. Anything else that people should be looking out for this weekend? Are there any Fulham players that you can say, okay, no, double game week, maybe you might eat something out with Fulham?
The only person would be Lookman. Yeah, you could. He's the only person in that Fulham side.
With Ademola Lookman that bothers me.
He's the only guy in that side. Look, I saw Lookman a while ago when he was an Everton youngster, and he came on against Spurs, and he just looked like he had a lot of energy. He then went to Leipzig, or I don't know if he went to Leipzig or Salzburg, one of those.
He went to Salzburg.
There you go. And then he was there, and now. I mean, to go to Fulham, it almost feels like a bit of a step down. So I think my thing with him is he can play at a higher level. And I think this was his opportunity to try and put himself in the shop window and try and show him. But, I mean, that Fulham side is horrendous. But he has come good. I mean, that goal he scored against United was pretty good. He can run around. He can get a goal in. And he's cheap. And no one ever thinks of Fulham. So that's why... If you are struggling for cash on FPL and now Fulham's got a double game week, there's no other reason you should never look at a Fulham player other than them having a double game week and no one else having one. You have to look at them.
And then from a Burnley perspective, I'd say look at Barnes. He's the only fit striker they have. I think Chris Wood hasn't been playing the last 2 games, but they're on the up and up, and they've got 2 games this weekend. They've got Crystal Palace and also Fulham. So from that perspective, Jay Rodriguez comes into the reckoning, and so does Barnes, and so does Westwood as well. If you're looking for some differentials, and then I think
they were shocking against Bournemouth. I watched that Bournemouth Burnley game. Don't ask me why.
Like I didn't even recognize a player on the field. The only player I recognized was Sam Billing, and I was like, oh, he played for Huddersfield.
I was hoping, I recognized Dash. That's the only person on that whole field I recognized.
Yeah, but, and I was like expecting to see Jack Wilshere play. That's why I watched that game, and then I was just disappointed that Jack wasn't playing because I still miss Jack. Yeah. I love Jack. Any final words, AB and Dean?
No, it's going to be a really tough game week because most people will have City, Spurs, Everton players because they've been doing well. So yeah, don't be disappointed. So hopefully, I mean, if you get in the 60s this game week, you're doing really well. That's always a good indicator of anywhere above 5 points a player. So that's the 55, 60 mark. You're doing well. So yeah, don't be too hard on yourselves.
Okay,
it's a bit deep. Not a deep from me.
Yeah. My side, if you've got that bench boost, I would say look at playing it. And if you've got the guys with decent fixtures, and I think that's everyone's conundrum at the moment. No one knows who to bench. It's hard to bench someone. So I would say now
28 points on the bench.
Don't do that. So if you've got it, play it, because I mean, there's a lot of sort of fixture postponements and delays and things that are coming up. But I think if you've got City guys, try and get your City guys. Everton are in a good run of form. And Burnley, Fulham give you some differential. So in terms of guys that have got double game weeks, it might be a good time to play it. So that's my little piece of advice, which I think I'm going to take. So we'll see how it goes.
Okay. From my end, I just want to say, everyone, enjoy this game week coming up. It is a double game week. Enjoy the football on offer. Remember, yes, we're playing FPL, but we also want to watch some good football. Have a great time. We'll see you next week on the other side of this for another edition of the Cheap Seats, normal and FPL edition all in one. But do look out for our videos on YouTube, like and subscribe, and follow us on these various platforms, and also follow us on Twitter and on Twitter and interact with us and tell us if we're talking crap or not. But from myself, Mpo, Dean, and AB, enjoy the weekend and le sale cacajizo.